Hey, we are working on rounding, and as you know, we are going to learn a different strategy every day. You do not have to do every single strategy. You just need to choose a strategy that works the best for you. So we're learning various strategies so that we can better understand the skill in a way that makes sense to us, okay? To get us warmed up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our rounding vocabulary, just to get that vocabulary in our head and us familiar with these steps and processes. So I will make sure I've shared my sound. I have, and here we go.
Good evening. Welcome to the Roundabout Show with your host, Ronnie Rounder. You know, sometimes with numbers, you don't need an exact answer. You just want an estimate, a reasonable guess. But today, we're going to talk about rounding. We're here on the number line right now, and as a matter of fact, I see a number right over there. Hi, I'm 24 and I'm doing fine. Just hanging out here on the number line. I have to get rounded to the nearest 10, so I'm easier to work with. Now, let's begin. What I need to do is find which multiple of 10 that I'm closest to. On the number line, let's see who we've got. 30 is on the right.
Come on and take it to the top.
And 20 is on the left. Whichever is closer is where I'm gonna round. 4 units from 20 and 6 units from 30, so I'll be rounding down to 20 in a hurry. I'll keep the number in my tens place, the 2, we know, and the rest of my digits will become 0.
Hey, I'm 57, what about me? Where do I round to? I'm stuck in between 50 and 60. Wait, okay, I'll round up to 60, just 3 units away. Turn my tens place digit from a 5 to a 6, the 7 is a 0, now I made the switch.
Right, but I'm 35, I don't know where to round. Should I go up or down, guys? I'm the same distance between 30 and 40. Who will support me? Don't worry, 35, it's cool. Thank goodness. For numbers like you, there's a rule. Okay. Numbers that end in 5 always get rounded up.
So I'll go ahead and make the jump to 40.
Yep. Rounding numbers, you know how we do. What's the place value that you're rounding to? Look right, 4 and under, you're going down, and 5 and above is going up until it's rounded. When you're rounding, you know how we do. What's the place value that you're rounding to? Look right, 4 and under, you're going down, and 5 and above is going up until it's rounded.
Hey, it's me, 483. I'm so high on the number line that rounding to the nearest 10, that could be smooth, but for now, rounding to the nearest 100 is the move.
As it turns out, it's similar to what we've already learned about. You need to find the closest multiple of 100.
Between 4 and 500 is what I've discovered.
Since that's the place value you're trying to round to, look to the right.
Hey, 8, I found you. You're above 5.
So we're rounding up, bro. Your hundreds place bumps up 1.
The rest are zeros. So I can round to the nearest 100, that's wicked. But what if I want to get more specific? An estimate that's closer to who I really am.
Well, you could also get rounded to the nearest 10.
Now back on the number line is where you find me.
Between multiples of 10.
480 and 490.
And by now, you should already know.
I'm closer to 480, so I'm rounding down
The
low.
hundreds and tens digits stay the same.
While all my other digits have to make the change.
To a 0, so next time you're doing math, and the numbers don't need to be exact, we'll be rounding numbers. You know how we do. What's the place value that you're rounding to? Look right, 4 and under, you're going down, and 5 and above is going up until it's rounded. When you're rounding, you know how we do. What's the place value that you're rounding to? Look right, 4 and under, you're going down, and 5 and above is going up until it's rounded. All right, that's a wrap. Ronnie Rounder, that's me. Yeah.
All right. So we have taken a look at remembering what our benchmark numbers are, whether we're rounding to the tens or the hundreds. Remember, your benchmark number will be a 10 number or a 100 number, okay? Today we're going to learn a new strategy. I have already uploaded that strategy for you in your Seesaw Math resources. So when you go to your journal and you click on your math folder, I showed you this yesterday. If you ever want a blank copy of a strategy to use, you can use this here. The rounding rhyme is there. 4 or less, give it a rest. 5 or more, raise the score. The steps or the rules for rounding are here. the place value chart, if that is what helps you best, the rounding roller coaster, and today we're going to learn how to round with more and less boxes. So this should be a familiar strategy to you from our place value lessons, and we're going to use this today as a tool to help us round. In order to help us understand that, Miss Thaxton has actually created a lesson for us. Oh yeah, I'm already in Seesaw. Has created a lesson for us about using more or less boxes to round. So we're going to take a look at her video lesson today, and I'd like for you to make sure you remain focused and listening.
Today we're going to continue rounding numbers using place value. We've already talked about using a rounding roller coaster to round numbers to the tens and hundreds place. We've also talked about using a place value chart to round numbers to the tens and the hundreds place. Now we're going to talk about a great way to name the benchmark numbers. So we're going to look at we're really going to focus on the second bullet under number 3, right here.
Sorry, I move my Zoom controls here. There we go.
Hopefully by now you remember the saying, 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, raise the score. Or maybe you've said 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, add 1 more. Or maybe you have heard the saying, 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, let it soar. Several different ways to try to remember the fact that if you have a number that you're trying to round and the number next to it is 4 or less, you're going to let it rest. 5 or more, well, you can either add 1 more, let it soar, or raise the score. It all means the same thing. So let's practice finding benchmarks using this chart. So let's say we have the number 482 that we want to round to the nearest tens or hundreds place. Let's start with the hundreds place. I'm going to underline the number in the hundreds place. That number is 4. If we're going to let 4 rest, then we're going to use that as our low hundred benchmark. Okay, since we're rounding to the nearest hundred, the next 2 numbers are just going to be zeros. Okay, if we're going to add 1 more to 4, we get 5. And since we're using 100 as the benchmark, we're just going to add 2 zeros to give us our 2 benchmarks. We have our low 100 benchmark of 400 and our high benchmark of 500. That means that if we're going to round 482 to the nearest 100, we're either going to round down to 400 or we're going to round up to 500. The answer will be one of those 2 choices. We're going to talk about which one it will be in just a minute. Okay, to find your benchmarks for tens, you're going to continue this line, and you can see that we have 48 tens, which is also 400s and 8 tens, but you can also say it is 48 tens. Well, our let it rest number is going to be 48. Our add 1 more is going to be 49. And since these are tens, we're going to pop on 1 0, since there's 1 0 in 10. And that gives us our low 10 benchmark number and our high 10 benchmark number if we were to round 482. Let's go to the next slide to see how we decide which one of those benchmarks we're going to round.
All right, so this example again is showing us how to round to both the tens and the hundreds. It keeps all of the benchmark numbers in mind.
Okay, from here, to decide which benchmark you need to round to, you can use any of the methods that you have already learned. All this does is help you recognize what the benchmarks are ahead of time. So if you use your rounding roller coaster, you know, and you're asked to round to the nearest 10, You know that your low 10 is going to be 480, and your high benchmark is going to be 490. And then you just plug in your number. You know that you have 480, 481, 482 is right here. And you can see that that ball is going to roll right down to 480. So 480 would be the 10 that you would round to. You can also use it when you are using your number line. So say you have a number line and you are wanting to round to the nearest 100. Well, your low benchmarks are going to be 400 and your high benchmark is going to be 500. You can see that either your answer is going to be 400 or 500 when you do your rounding. Okay, so 450 is right here in the middle. And 482 is more than 450, so it's going to be probably right there. You can clearly see here that 482 is closer to the 500 than it is to the 400. So 482 then would round to 500 if you were rounding to the nearest 100. And that's how you use one of these charts to easily find your benchmark numbers.
Okay, so this chart won't necessarily help you determine which benchmark number to round to, but it is a visual way to see which benchmark numbers are involved in the rounding number. Then you can choose which strategy you like best to use from there. Either the rounding roller coaster, using a number line, the place value chart, using the rhyme, whatever strategy you feel is most appropriate. Coming back to you, what questions can I answer about how to complete the more less than boxes? 11.
I didn't really get it on the 3 boxes.
Okay, we'll work through one together. Okay, so oops, I keep doing that when I want to switch my camera. I keep turning it off. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples of creating more than, less than boxes. So again, this will not help you determine which benchmark number you're going to round to, but it will help you identify the correct benchmark numbers, okay? So we have the number, let's just stick with this number, 326. When we have been asked to identify the benchmark numbers for 326, I can create a more than, less than box. Okay, so we have been given the number 326, and we might have been asked to round this number to the tens and to the hundreds. Okay, so we have 326. These two boxes will be what we use to show the higher benchmark number, because we know that up, so going up is higher, and as we follow a number line, the further right you go is a larger number as well. Okay, so we will first create the hundreds here. This is 300. So if these two boxes go up, these two boxes will go down. One, because it's down. This side, because it's on the left of the number, which is the smaller or lesser side. So this we would see 300. Over here, we know that the next 100 is 400. So 300 and 400 on a number line would appear on the left and right of 326. If we're using a hundreds chart, we would see our tens. This is our tens place. This is a 20. 326. We say the name of the 10 in the number. After 20, we would move up to 30 when counting by tens. 10, 20, 30. So this moves up. Okay? This is exactly the same as we did yesterday with our number line. Okay, so take a look. We had a number 485. We identified 400 and 500. These are our benchmark numbers. Just like on a more or less than box, these are our benchmark numbers. There's one on the left, there's one on the right. Okay? This would be the same thing as if we were rounding to the tens place with a rounding roller coaster. When we're rounding to the tens place, here was another example from a previous lesson. We have 580 over here. We have 590 over here. So this is our higher and lower benchmark number with the tens. So this here just shows you how to find the benchmark numbers. Okay, let me show you one more and I'll work out some double so you can see how I'm using this. So let me make this a little bit larger. So if we're thinking about how to use a more than, less than box to identify our benchmark numbers, we can also think about using a rounding roller coaster. Okay, so this number is 587. I got to make this so you can see it. Let me figure out how to get this a little bit higher. I'll have to put some books under it. One moment, please. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so we have 587. We identified our benchmark number as 580 and as 590. So if we were doing this on a more than, less than box, we have 587. And we know that this box is a high 10. This box is a low 10. So instead of writing it on the left and the right of our roller coaster, we would write it in the high and low box. So the low 10, we say the name of 80, 580, because 80 is a number we would say when counting by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. The high 10 would be one more 10, 590. So 80 is low, 90 is high. Just like on our rounding roller coaster with our benchmark numbers, 80 and 90, 580, 590. It's the same thing, it just looks different, okay? Now, if we were going to do the hundreds, here we would put the low 100, here we would put the high 100. So this would be 587, 587. The 100 that we said is right here, 500. After 500 comes 600. So that's our benchmark numbers. The low 100 is 500. The high 100 is 600, because 587 would be right here. Oops, sorry. We're counting by tens, would be right here in the 580s, and that's between these two. So we would see that there, okay? If we wanted to solve this with the roller coaster, it would be 500, 510, 520, 530, 540, 550, 560, 570, 580. Look at that, that's where our number is. 590. And we can see if we're in the 580s that we would round forward or up to 600. So this would show us 600. If we wanted to switch and round to the tens, 587, just like our song says, we look to the right. This is a 7. So it would go up, because it's greater than the midpoint of 5. Okay, so this is just to identify your benchmark numbers. If you're only asked to identify the hundreds, then don't fill out the tens. If you're only asked to identify the tens, then don't fill out the hundreds. This is just a tool to help you understand its place in between numbers. Okay? Let me switch my cameras here. All right, beautiful. So let's take a look at your work, because I think right now we're thinking this is a little more complicated than it is, and I want to show you that it's actually pretty simple. Okay? When we go to Seesaw, you will have in your activities finding benchmarks using more or less box. Our directions are:
Click through the instructional videos to learn how to use a more or less box to find benchmark numbers. Click on the Add button to practice using the more or less box to help you find benchmarks when rounding. When finished, click on the green check.
Okay, so we have our directions. We've already clicked through the instructional videos together, but if you feel that you need to watch them again, as always, they are attached. Okay? When you click on Add Response, you will see that you've been given 4 problems to solve today, and they come up starting with number 7. Don't worry about the number, it's just the ones that you're solving. It says round 429 to the nearest 10 and 100. See, we're being asked to do 2 things, 10 and 100. So I'm being asked to round the number 429. So if I'm being asked to do the 10 and the 100, I can focus on the 10s first. We say the first number, 429. That's the low number, 420. Our high number is one more 10. So if we add one more 10, that's 430. If I want to use my rounding rhyme, I'm going to say 4 or less, give it a rest. 5 or more, which 9 is more than 5, we raise the score. So I circle 430 because that is where it rounds. Now we're going to focus on the hundreds. We've been asked to do both. 429. We're rounding between 400, because that's the 100 number that we say, and the bigger 100 would be one more 100, which is 500. Look to the right to figure out what you're rounding. So the lower place value, this is a 2. 4 or less, give it a rest. So it's going down. So this is how I would show my answer for the 10 is circled with the blue. I chose orange, so I circled the 100. You don't have to do the different colors, but that just helps me as a learner. I like to color coordinate. So you'll need to circle which 10 and which 100 the given number rounds to, okay? If you don't want to use the rhyme, you have space over here to draw yourself a number line if you like, or to draw yourself a rounding roller coaster if you like, or to draw yourself a hundreds, tens, and ones chart if you like. You can use any strategy that you like, but you're going to show your answer by circling it in the more or less than box, okay? So you have choice of which strategy works best for you, the rounding rhyme, the number line, the place value chart, or the rounding roller coaster. You're just showing it with the more or less than boxes, okay? So this one, you'll all be able to see. I've given you the answer to the first one. You're welcome. So if I upload that, there you go. You've got the answer. You are going to complete both of these. You are going to complete this table where it's rounded to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100, this number. And you are going to complete the last one where there will be more than one answer. Take a look. Choose all that apply. There's more than one answer here, okay? So this is your assignment. These two, filling out this chart with the correctly rounded number and completing this word problem, okay? What questions can I answer about your assignment expectation? Okay. So you have 18 minutes until it is time for lunch. I am going to stay on Zoom for those 18 minutes. So if you are working and you find that you need help, you can hop on here or stay on here up until 11:15. okay? If you do not finish before then, it's okay. Take your lunch, take your recess, and then finish it during work time this afternoon. If you need help after lunch, I am always on Zoom at 12 o'clock. Hop on with any assignment at all, and I will help you there, okay? Before you go, I want to remind you of our schedule. As I shared, you have 18 minutes until lunch. At 12 o'clock, you are to log back on and start working, either finishing your reading assignment or completing your math assignment. If you are done with both, you are expected to be working on Prodigy because it is math time. I am seeing a lot of people choosing things like Sketch and Scratch and Tinker. That is not our math assignment. You are to be working on math. At 1:35, you have related arts with Ms. Katowitz. At 2:20, you will hop back on for dismissal. Okay?